Awesome. Well, thank you, everyone. Last panel of this incredible day at Stellar House Miami. Hi, I'm Mashiat. I am the head of ecosystem at Boundless Networks. I'm sure some of you guys have listened in on Shiv's panel and know a little bit about what we do. And we're really excited to support, Stellar in their mission towards privacy and enabling, a more open but privacy-preserving future in blockchain. And I'm very excited about this, panel. I think it's a huge honor for me to, chat and get to know more about our esteemed guests here, Jason and Debbie. And today we're going to be talking about storytelling and how storytelling is really important, not only in this day and age, but also how it's shaping Web3 crypto and how it's bridging together brand and technology. I think for me, storytelling is probably one of the most primitive ways that human beings are, connecting with each other. We grow up on stories. That's one of the ways that we learn about morals. We learn about how we want to show up in this world and how we want to portray our values. And it's really exciting for me because I had my own kind of nonlinear journey into crypto. And one of the folks that actually got me back into crypto was actually Debbie, and listening in on her Hug XYZ Clubhouse sessions. And I really got a first-handed understanding, the master class of bringing together stories, bringing together people, bringing together a mission together, and making people care about that. So before we talk more about Stellar and Privy and the amazing work that you guys have been doing, I wanted to ask you to share with us a story about how you both got into this space, specifically in the marketing space. What are the stories that have driven you to come here, and what's inspiring you to kind of stay and push the needle forward?
Okay, I'll start. So I started my career, I guess the better way to say it is I grew up with two doctor parents who told me I could be anything I wanted to be when I grew up, as long as I became a doctor. And so that was sort of the vibe. And at some point, I realized I really liked politics. So I went off that path and went and worked on the Obama campaign. And then I ended up working for a local politician in Colorado, where I grew up. And at a certain point, I was applying to law school, and a friend at Google asked me to apply to this marketing program. And I was like, I don't do marketing. But then I reflected on it. And actually, politics, in a lot of ways, is just storytelling. And all my interest in how to shape the masses really comes down to who controls the story, who controls the world. And I think going into tech and being able to spread the story of great technologies to help them grow was just too alluring of a path, and I accidentally became a marketer. If I do a memoir, it'll be The Accidental Marketer.
I love that. Oh my God. I can't wait to dive into that.
I mean, I feel the same way too. I think we talked about it last night as well, and I said I think I might have accidental marketer on my Instagram bio, so I might have already I should trademark it.
Do it quickly before I write.
No, but I mean, I've had such a diverse career. I started off my career in traditional finance, spent 7 years doing that. In the middle of that, I had a side hustle where I founded a cycling studio, and then I moved into the world of live sports. COVID happened, so live sports obviously wasn't very fun anymore, and then decided that I'll quit my job and, pack 2 bags, bring my dog. So we moved halfway across the world from Singapore to the US. And I think it was during that time that I realized, surprise, surprise, pretty hard to meet people during lockdown. Ended up spending a lot of time on the internet. And I guess I just got really excited by all of the things that were happening in crypto. And I think mostly because I think when you look back at that time during the pandemic, it was such a depressing time, and yet there was this group of people, for better or for worse, that were incredibly optimistic and drinking all of their own Kool-Aid. So I thought, hey, this is a pretty fun place to be. And so I ended up, founding a company in crypto. And again, never really considered myself a marketer, but I think in growing brands and in growing communities, I think that was the bit that kind of stuck out to me the most, and that if you have a really great product, you have to have a great product first and foremost. But once you do, it is really, really fun to help it get the stage and the attention and the platform that it deserves.
I think that is, I think you said hit on 2 points that are very key. One is obviously you have to have a great product, right, before pushing forward the story. And then the other piece where, during the pandemic, I think a lot of us were just feeling for connection. And there was obviously so many different types of platforms that were coming on board, but what made people stick around were like the stories that we were telling through those platforms. Both of you have such a diverse career, like across, sports and politics, and even just in your career in crypto. I wanted to kind of ask, like, as you've worked with all of these different brands, and you've kind of even come into brands that have longevity in their own spaces, like, what makes a good narrative, right? And what makes a good story? And why do these stories stick? So maybe this is like, maybe there's examples like through your careers, that you may have seen. I'd love for you to like share, if one of those things come to mind.
I think it's actually good to start with stories that don't stick. So you can see how it may have all the ingredients that feel like you're doing marketing, you're doing brand, but it's not working. I would say, I'll go outside of crypto to earlier in my tech career. When I was at Google, I joined this team that was at the time called Emerald Sea internally, but it became Google+. And the idea was we wanted to have people provide more information about themselves and their networks, and we thought that that could make search better and ads better, et cetera. But it came off to the world like we were making this Facebook killer or attempt, and it didn't go so well. And in that process, we did amazing marketing and storytelling that was basically community driven. It was about having hangouts. We had a hangout with the Dalai Lama, a virtual hangout. We did one with Obama. We would go to these big events and sponsor these ways to connect people and bring regular people into these conversations with celebrities, which at the time was very niche and nice. And all those stories were great. And the technology to do a multi-person hangout was not available in Skype. It was not actually even available in Google Plus to the extent that we forced it to look. But it did not help the product. It did not. Good marketing does not is an apology for a bad product. It's not going to grow the product. You really need, like what I always say is marketing strategy is business strategy, is growth strategy, is partnership strategy. If those aren't all the same and aligned, one being an outshining winner might work, but it won't work for that long. On the flip side, when you find product market fit and you're able to tell a story that speaks to a particular audience, meaning if other people who are not the audience see the story and it doesn't resonate, that's as planned. I think people too often think of themselves as the audience for everything, like everything should be for them, but really great marketing is telling the right story to the right person to convince them of a particular action or to change their view in a particular moment. And that's more of a science mixed with art, as opposed to just really cool content that's viral.
Yeah, and I think the question about who are you marketing to, who your audience is, I think that's probably something that always kind of goes overlooked, especially in this space where we live in an attention economy anyway, but I think in crypto especially, things go viral really quickly. People have an opinion about things that they maybe don't really have any business having an opinion about. And so sometimes people feel like good marketing is how many clicks, how many views, how many comments, how much discourse that you can get. And to some extent, yes, maybe that is true. You have people talking, people say that, publicity is, but all publicity is good publicity in some ways. Yeah. But I think at least, especially at Privy and, being an infrastructure company, it's interesting in that the way that we think about marketing or the way that we think about storytelling may not be what we all naturally relate to, like we were just talking about Fiji water, but we're not selling to consumers, we're selling to developers, we're selling to businesses. So we're telling, a lot of times we're telling stories, not necessarily about ourselves, because I think in some sense, we feel it's kind of uncomfortable knowing who are the people that built the security that protects your keys. I think a lot of the times we choose to tell stories of our customers and how they're using our product to better their experience and experience their users. So at least from my perspective, I think one of the reasons why this has been such a fulfilling stage of my career is that, yes, I'm out there obviously, telling everyone how amazing Privy is, because it is amazing. But I think more importantly is the builders and the teams that we work with and who we're helping to empower, telling their stories together with them. I think that has been really motivating for me.
I think that's. I think both of those experiences are really insightful for me, particularly because I think, as you said, Jason, there's the right way to tell stories, and then there's almost the wrong way to tell stories, and that's where things start to lose their impact, and you can just be doing a spray and pray campaign in many times. And I think, Deb, you've really hit on the fact that trust is kind of, at the end of the day, what we're all selling. You know, whether we're selling complicated products, infrastructure on my end, right, embedded wallets or payments and remittances, at the end of the day, trust is at the core of it all, and you have to kind of find a way to make that connective, right, to your particular like target market. And one of the challenges that I kind of see now in the space, given that everyone's attention span is on average like 3 to 7 seconds, right, is how do you build a brand that is geared towards longevity, right? And how do you make those stances and those stakes in the ground like really matter to your target audience? How do you tell them that, hey, we understand that like, you know, you want something to click on, but we're here to stay, and we're a brand that's here to stay. So how are you guys kind of navigating that in a world where short form content, you know, has become the norm?
Yeah, I know we talk about trust, and obviously that's the core, and I think for Privy that's obviously extremely important. I think for all brands it's important. I think especially when you're doing something that's related to security and in crypto is especially important. And I always talk about trust as kind of like a trust triangle. You have authenticity on one part of it. You have logic on another, and then you have empathy on the last. And so like I think the way that I look at it is like, can a brand be authentic, so be consistent in a way that it shows up no matter who it's talking to. Obviously the logic bit is that the product has to make sense, like you mentioned. You know, you can't have a bad product. Like people need to actually derive value out of using a product. And then I think the empathy bit is where it comes in, where knowing who your audiences are, and that you could be selling the same product, and in some ways just telling the same story, but telling it in a different way depending on who you're speaking to. And you know, I think developers are going to care that they can implement something really easily, and they have a great developer experience, they have great docs. I think when we are selling to fintechs and enterprises, we're talking to product leaders where, maybe they have just started hearing about embedded wallets. Like they want to make sure that they're going with someone that they feel like they can bet the business on, or that they can pick Privy and they're not going to get fired for picking Privy. So I think like being able to really understand what their motivations are, and obviously they are building great products for their users, but being able to understand what their motivations are really helps you build, I think, a brand that earns its space, earns its trust over the long haul.
I agree with that completely. I think when you think about building a durable brand for the future, it requires a few components. One is understanding the value that you bring to the world and what your target audience wants, and understand that deeply. I think too often, okay brands and okay products are unclear about that positioning and that target audience, and that is the foundation upon which growth, product strategy, and marketing strategy must be built upon. And if you don't have that clear, it's basically a crapshoot whether or not you can be successful. Two, I think having a very compelling vision for the world as it will be if you are wildly successful. I think that's often looked at as like, why would we talk about that? People don't talk like that. I think Timothée Chalamet had a famous moment where he was like, people don't talk like this, but I want to be one of the greats. And this is on the path there. And you believe in him, and it's kind of making you say, well, he's going to be back. I'm going to watch out for him in his next step, and is beautifully telling this vision. Elon Musk also does this. I know he's controversial now, but he's incredible at talking about this longer-term vision that seems wild. But then he tells you very distinctly, concretely, how you can buy his product, and you're on the path to energy independence or multi-planetary species by buying Starlink. And that's incredible to take those two together. And then the final component to make a great brand is to be very disciplined and focused. I think it's really, that we talked about attention just being shattered in many different directions. But if you can really focus your attention on the wins that you can make in the next quarter or two that keep you at the pinball machine, to keep playing the next game, to keep playing so that you earn the right to go do your long-term vision, is sort of how you have to think about it. And to try to do it all at once, to try to do everything and be everything to everywhere all at once is a great movie, but a very bad marketing strategy.
I think that resonates so much with me, because that's not just like the fundamentals of like great marketing strategy. It's actually the fundamentals of also having great business strategy. And like I see this a lot, like as I'm kind of doing more partnerships and more sales, it's like everything kind of feels a little bit like a 4D chess, right? Especially in these deals, and you really have to understand, okay, my counterpart that I'm selling to, what do they care about? As you said, like, what's the win that they're looking for? And is that win going to also enable me to continue towards the delusional vision, that I want to see and I want to bring into this world? I agree with the fact that, like, we kind of have almost like a role as well in educating, like, folks. As our tech is getting more and more practical, or we're entering, as Robinson said, like the more practical era of crypto, we're kind of entering this area where, all right, we're not only bringing in frontier tech, but now we have the task of educating folks. How are you guys kind of navigating that through marketing? And what is sticking with folks? Obviously, there's like target markets, like builders for Privy, right, or institutions for Stellar. But then how are you educating folks beyond these audience tiers as well, while sticking true to your mission?
Yeah, I think Privy's mission is pretty simple. It's basically to abstract crypto complexity away for both developers and end users. So I think as part of extracting away that complexity, the irony is that if we were to be fully successful in that, the end user should not need to really understand how crypto works. And that means like hiding the wires, and it means that the experiences that they are used to in terms of how they use a Venmo, or how to use an Uber, or how to use an everyday app that is part of their life. If there's crypto in it, they should not have to understand it in order to use it, right? And I think that's why we've talked a lot about stablecoins and how it's crypto's killer app, because people can understand things that are denominated in dollars. Like, it's like people look at that and you don't have to compute in their head what is a Bitcoin worth, or what is an ETH worth, or what is a Lumen worth. They don't have to run through all of these computations, because like it's something that they're using day in and day out. So, not to say that there isn't value. Obviously, there's a lot of things that, I think when we talk about education, we're still educating developers, we're still educating business leaders, we're educating neobanks and remittance platforms, and we're educating them on like why stablecoins and why is the blockchain better for your particular use case. So I think there's still a lot of education to be done. I think, whether it is, not all blockchains are created equal, obviously, so there's education to be done on that front. And, I think even as a wallet infrastructure provider, we're just one part of the stack, and, obviously we're a core part of the stack. I always say that we can say that stablecoins are great and everything, but they need to live somewhere. They don't just float around. So, I think we've been trying to do a lot of education that, like, hey, your wallet is basically your global bank account, and that's where your assets are going to live. So I think there is a lot of that needs to be done from, an institutional angle, a developer angle, like even an end user angle to some extent. But I think ultimately, we're very focused as well. We know exactly who our audiences are. And so we have to kind of really narrow in on the people that we're speaking to, and that need not necessarily be the end user, because we're not selling directly to them, if you will.
I think I'm going to pivot actually off of what Debbie just said. I think there's something that's a nefarious outcome of doing really good education, is that you forget the core job of storytelling, which is to position. And so what I mean by that is, I think Privy is a best-in-class product. It makes it easy for people to abstract away the wires and what they're doing. What that risks, if you don't do the next part well, is that now it's actually commoditized. It's like, how do you make something so? I worked at a Wi-Fi company that made routers. We called it Wi-Fi that actually works. And Wi-Fi is something that if it works incredibly well, it's invisible. And if it breaks, it's the worst thing in the world. Security is the same. It's like security is not a problem. You don't think about it until it's your only problem. And I think in these highly technical products, telling stories and positioning, you really got to get to. It's not trickery, but it's storytelling. It's like, how do you make it clear that what wallet you use matters? What your wallet enables will be the limiting factor between having interoperable access to all the future of finance, or being trapped in like one garden. Like, are you going to be sitting in a Venmo wallet forever and just hope that Venmo launches the features for you? Or are you going to sit in a Privy wallet that actually somehow works across all these platforms? And we were talking last night about how can you send funds from Uber to Airbnb without going to a banking intermediary? There's a storytelling that can happen about like why the basic thing you're doing matters. And on the L1, like, yeah, why should there be a Solana and a Stellar and a Monad and an Ethereum? I think that's like a good question. I don't think actually all of them deserve to be equal and exist together, but a lot of them should work together and be interoperable. So then that says for Stellar, how do we position ourselves? I didn't come to Stellar to have us be number 45 on DeFi Llama and 50 by market cap rank. I think that there's an opportunity to really take the future of financial services as one of the killer next frontiers of building on the network. Which is to say, stable coins are only a killer app if you can then go get access to all that everyday finance in the Western world you see here, everywhere in the world. And that's going to change the world in a lot of ways. And anyway, so that's very commoditized. Stable coins can be issued by lots of people, but why get USDC versus USDT? I think it's all about the storytelling and the visioning and talking about it matters because we're going to go on a journey together. And if you believe in where we're going, this is why you should use this product.
I think that really is like the nail on the head. One thing that I've noticed also this year as an exercise for myself, as I'm selling ZK Proving, as you said, when it works, it's great, and nobody needs to know about it, right? I'm offering you security, trustlessness, instant withdrawals, and you don't have to care about how it works. But when it breaks, you're definitely going to notice, and your network's going to notice, and you're going to be calling me up and yelling at me.
And what you do when it breaks may be your brand. Like, honestly.
It can definitely. I mean, my brand, just like everyone's brand, is based off of reputation, and so that's in security. That's paramount. And so I agree with you that being very aware about where you sit in the stack as well is very key as to not only how you sell your product, but who you're selling it to, and also just being very honest about what's the feasibility of your product and where you're going to win. I see this time and time again in so many of these conversations, and I'm also just noticing this shift, as you said, Jason. When we first started in blockchain and crypto, we've had this influx of general purpose blockchains. And now we're seeing that that's been kind of narrowed down to either Base, Solana, and Ethereum, and then everyone else really has to be very honed in as to what's my purpose, right? And who I want to go after. And I think that we're just gonna see more of that trend, more purposeful blockchains, more purposeful networks with more purpose-driven transactions and actions that we want people to take. What are some narratives in this space or even outside of crypto that are really exciting to you guys? I want to see who's doing the storytelling right, and who's maybe not doing it so right. What are you guys noticing?
I think I'm excited. I think still kind of keeping it adjacent to this space, and I'm sure everyone can guess, but obviously what AI has done and transformed our lives in a lot of ways. And I know that it's still very controversial to a lot of different people, and I can speak to it from the art side of things, given that we're here at Art Basel, and as AI art. There's been countless debates on all of that. And an AI-generated photo winning a Sony photographer competition. That's all of that, right? And then there's all these things about AI coming for our jobs, and then on the flip side of it, people would say that, well, if you really do know how to collaborate with AI or work with AI, it actually makes your life a lot easier and a lot more productive. So I think that is something that I think all of the most successful companies in the world are embracing. It's clearly here to stay. I would say even as a marketer, I use AI to vibe code, right? I'm not a developer, and I'm here trying to sell to developers. If I am not in the weeds of understanding our own docs and our own SDKs and our own product, I feel this has unlocked a new way of me in relating to people. And I think in terms of use cases too, I think we're starting to see a lot more about agentic payments, which we're starting to see come forth. But again, agentic payments today can only go so far. But when you have agents with wallets, all of a sudden it unlocks a whole new economy. So I think that's some of the things that's a little bit more future looking that I'm personally really excited about. And I think I'm excited about how, again, wallets are a part of it. And I know it sounds a little bit like a broken record, but truly it is kind of that account layer that powers all of these things and empowers economies and allows us to hold, send, receive, and move assets around. And I think that's what gets me, really excited, and that I get to play even at least a small role in shaping all of that.
Yeah, you guys are one of the first kind of journey touch points, right, for anyone now who's coming into crypto or exploring a new network. Yeah. What about you, Jason?
I think I'm going to take a left turn a little bit.
Yeah, do it.
At a high level, I think we talked about sort of these attention merchant products, and then I would actually put almost everything digital into this category of either it's trying to entertain you or trying to help you do your work or trying to get your stuff done. But the other way that we spend our time is consuming physical goods. I feel like actually physical goods is one of these places where there's been a lot of change, and there's been a lot of shifts. I think consumer beverages, we actually were talking about this right before, is really interesting. Like Liquid Death, being able to take water, to put it in a can versus a plastic bottle, which is actually good for the environment and potentially good for your health because of microplastics, which is also marketing. I feel like I didn't know about microplastics, but now I'm concerned about them, and that's interesting. And to take that and then to create this whole cultural narrative around, we talked about Diet Coke as fridge cigarettes, like what I'm saying are a bunch of threads that come together and are, what's interesting about consumable purchases is you make so many of them in any given week, and the story is everything. Like, why would you go to Costco and get the healthy snacks versus Doritos? Why is Doritos launching a red dye-less nachos called NKD, like naked, so they're like less orange or something? But how they're taking these stale products like water and Doritos and jumping on the narrative and telling stories that meet the audience where they are, which is like, I'm concerned about microplastics. Okay, well then I'm going to give you a cool can that looks like an IPA, and we're going to call it Liquid Death, and we're going to say weird double entendre marketing campaigns, and you're going to be all over our water. And it's like, okay, it kind of worked. So I'm very impressed by taking lessons from these highly integrated product companies that are able to tell stories that change your actions on micro levels that compounded actually change the market.
And not only that, like not only change your actions at a micro level, but also like how the person that you want to connect to and become, right? Because a lot of this marketing is in many ways identity driven in the sense of like, okay, this is who my target consumer wants to be. Like, for example, I'm a girly, so like I love Rhode, I love Hailey Bieber. I am a shtick for her marketing, and she does it really well, and it's because she personifies like who other women in that age group or target group want to become or want to emulate. So I think a lot of these physical consumer brands are really like either rewriting that narrative into something that's more perception driven or identity driven. And I think that maybe we can all learn a note or two from them.
And Debbie, you were telling me last night about launching the first like cycling studio in Southeast Asia when the Soul Cycle boom was happening.
Yeah.
I feel like that's also interesting marketing and storytelling around how you work out and what you choose to do to work out says something about your identity, and it comes in waves somehow, which is wild.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think a lot of it is like, you know, we all crave community, right? Like, and I think like, and for better or for worse, like crypto is a very tribal space, but I think even outside of crypto, like even our choice of sport, like what team do you support? Like which sports team are you a fan of? Like a lot of the times, like sure, maybe you grew up from there, that's why you picked that team. A lot of the times it's completely random, and then you have these rivalries that you don't even know why you hate that other team. It's just, that's the way it is. But I think like being able to understand that this is generally how culture works and like accept that that is also part of our work and being able to navigate that.
Yeah.
It's just, you know, incredibly important, you know, building at this frontier of like emerging tech.
It's amazing. We have 2 minutes left, and I did want to end this note on a more contrarian take. So do you guys know what the Oxford 2025 word of the year is?
Does anyone else
It's
know?
something that President Trump does really well.
Winning? No, I'm kidding. I'm just kidding.
I'm dead. It's rage bait.
Yes, I do.
Yep, it's rage bait. So before we take our leave, I want you guys to share one rage bait or a contrarian take and leave the audience with that.
Ooh.
Or what's your hot take? It can just be any hot take. Eat more microplastics.
I hate TikTok.
I think you just turned an entire generation against you.
No, that's great. I didn't say that the brand can't use TikTok. I just don't like it.
Debbie, what's your spicy take?
I don't have
Or
spicy
rage bait
takes.
take.
I don't know. Like I'm too much of a people pleaser. What's the spicy take?
You like TikTok?
Oh, I'm like pretty indifferent to TikTok.
Okay.
So, I guess my hot take is that there are probably a lot of brands in this space that don't have to exist, but somehow they still do. And I won't name names, but yeah.
After when the live
Ooh,
stream
mic drop.
stops, you can name names.
It's like crap. I just remember this live. But yeah.
Oh my God.
And time will reveal. Time is always the
Yes.
greatest revealer of all of it. So yeah.
Yeah.
You asked the question. Do you have one?
Do I have a rage bait? Oh my God. I would say my one was actually what I was going to say was basically closer to like Debbie's take. What's my rage bait? It's less about brands. I just think like there's a lot of technology that may not need to exist. I think our stack is condensing a lot, and there's only going to be a few solutions that really matter. And I think if you're, okay, so my hot take is if you're not selling something either to the institutions or the degens, you're probably not going to make it. And that's it.
NGMI. Great way to end.
NGMI. And I know that might ruffle a few feathers, but it's kind of what I'm noticing in this space. So yeah. But thank you so much. I really appreciated just having the space to chat with you. And thank you for just imparting so much knowledge to all of us.
Thank you for having us. Thank you.
And that's a wrap on Stellar House Miami. Thank you, everyone. And thank you, Guinness.